It began with a silence that felt almost sacred, the kind that fills a room before something impossible happens. In a secluded research center beneath the redwood trees of California, a gorilla named Kira sat before her caretaker, her dark eyes glistening with something deeper than fear. For years, scientists had spoken of gorilla sign language as a miracle of communication, a fragile bridge between two species. But that morning, Kira wasn't performing for science. She was trying to say goodbye. Her hands moved slowly at first, each motion carrying the weight of a memory. One by one, her signs began to form a pattern no one recognized. The caretaker leaned forward, heart pounding, trying to translate in real time. But this wasn't the simple vocabulary Kira had learned as a young ape. Not food, not play, not sleep. These were fragments of emotion, like broken pieces of a dream trying to be remembered. When the final gesture came, everyone in the room froze. Because what she said wasn't about objects, it was about love and loss. 18 years earlier, this same gorilla had been rescued as a fragile infant, barely clinging to life. A young veterinarian had fought through a storm to save her. She never forgot his face. And now, after almost 2 decades, her trembling hands were spelling something that no one expected, a message that seemed to reach across time itself. It was as if she remembered him, the man who once carried her to safety. The scientists thought they understood animal intelligence. They'd spent their lives studying patterns, reinforcement, cognition. But as they watched Kira's hands shape words too human to ignore, something in them shifted. Maybe this wasn't imitation. Maybe it was remembrance. Maybe, just maybe, she had loved him in a way words could never explain. When they finally translated her last sequence of signs, no one spoke. The caretaker covered her face and wept. Kira had signed 3 simple words, words that no human had taught her, words that would travel the world and haunt everyone who witnessed them. Because in that moment, the question was no longer, can gorillas learn language? It was, how much of us already lives inside them? For years, the story of Kira was whispered through laboratories, classrooms, and late-night documentaries, a tale that blurred the line between science and soul. To some, she was proof that gorilla sign language could bridge the gap between humans and animals. To others, she was a beautiful illusion, a creature mimicking gestures without meaning, but those who truly met her eyes knew better. There was thought behind them, memory, emotion, a quiet intelligence that refused to be caged by human doubt. The project had begun as an experiment in linguistics. Researchers wanted to see if a gorilla could truly understand words, not just repeat them, but use them to express desire, sadness, humor, even empathy. Kira shattered every barrier they set. She didn't just learn sign language, she used it to build relationships. She signed love to her caretaker, sad when a friend was gone, and even cry when she saw pain in others. Yet, as her abilities grew, so did the disbelief. Scientists around, the world argued that it was all projection, that humans were seeing emotion where there was none, until the day she proved them wrong. On that final morning, the world outside the research center carried on, cars, headlines, ordinary life. But inside that room, something extraordinary was happening. A creature humans had once called primitive was expressing a truth we still struggle to define, what it means to love and to remember. The cameras were rolling, but no one watching through the lens could have predicted what came next. Her caretaker, the woman who had raised her from infancy, knew the signs by heart. Yet this time they didn't follow any of Kira's usual patterns. Her movements were slower, trembling, deliberate. It was as if her entire life had led to this one moment of language, this one act of reaching across an invisible divide. Each gesture carved through the air like a memory resurfacing after years of silence. And then came the message. Fragmented, almost whispered through her hands. A story about a man she had not seen in nearly 2 decades. The same man who had once carried her from death into life. The same eyes she remembered, even when science said she couldn't. No one in that room could have imagined that her final words would echo across the world, or that what she signed next would change forever how we see ourselves reflected in the eyes of a gorilla. The rain had already turned the forest into a sea of mud when he found her, a tiny gorilla shivering, her chest barely rising with each breath. The poachers had vanished hours earlier, leaving behind only broken branches and silence. Dr. Nathan Cole knelt beside the infant, wrapping her in his jacket. Her fur was wet and cold against his hands. When she opened her eyes, there was no fear, only confusion, and something he couldn't explain. Recognition. Even in that fragile moment, she seemed to know he wasn't like the others. He carried her through the storm for miles, boots sinking deep into the mud, heart pounding with every thunderclap. Each time lightning flashed, he glanced down at the small creature clinging to his chest. She didn't cry. She didn't move. But once, just once, her tiny fingers gripped the edge of his collar, refusing to let go. He whispered softly, as if words alone could keep her alive. "It's okay. You're safe now." That night, the forest swallowed their footprints, but not their story. Back at the research compound, others told him she wouldn't make it. Too weak, too cold, too young. But Nathan refused to listen. He fed her drop by drop, kept her warm under a blanket and his steady voice. When she finally blinked and looked up at him again, he smiled for the first time in weeks. He whispered, "Kira." It was just a sound, soft, accidental, but it would become a name written in history. Days turned into weeks. The fragile bond between man and gorilla deepened. He hummed songs while preparing her milk. She tilted her head, memorizing every note. She began to reach for his hand, tracing his fingers, fascinated by their shape. In those quiet moments, Nathan felt something change. Not in her, but in himself. He wasn't studying an animal anymore. He was witnessing consciousness bloom. The first time she mimicked a gesture, he laughed. She had seen him wave goodbye, and when he returned, she waved back. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. From that day on, he used small signs and facial expressions. Each time she responded faster, more precisely. The scientists watching began taking notes. None of them dared to say it out loud yet, but they were thinking the same thing. What if she understands? Months passed. Kira grew stronger, playful, mischievous. She would steal Nathan's cap and hide it behind her back, then flash a smile that looked far too human to ignore. Their bond was no longer a study. It was devotion. He spoke to her as one speaks to a child, with patience, with warmth, with love he couldn't explain. But when funding shifted, Nathan was reassigned. The morning he came to say goodbye, Kira sensed it. She reached for his arm, pressing her forehead against it, making a low sound, something between a growl and a cry. He whispered, "You're safe now." But this time, the promise broke the moment he walked away. For years, he tried to forget. Yet at night, when the jungle went quiet, he'd remember her. The way she looked at him, the way she seemed to listen. Somewhere deep inside, he knew she hadn't forgotten either. When Nathan returned to the sanctuary years later, he thought she was long gone. But as the mist shifted, he saw her. Broad shoulders, dark fur, eyes fixed on him with the stillness of recognition. The years had changed her, but not that gaze. It was the same spark that once reached for him in the storm. Only now it was her turn to watch him as if to say, "I remember." He froze. The caretaker nearby whispered, "She doesn't react like this to anyone." Kira's breathing deepened. Her fingers twitched, tracing shapes in the air. Then came the sign, subtle, hesitant, but unmistakable. The same hand motion she used when she wanted him to hum. Without thinking, Nathan began to whistle the old lullaby. Kira leaned forward, eyes widening, pressing her palm to the glass. Purposeful, alive, remembering. From that day on, something awoke inside her. Every time Nathan appeared, she repeated 3 signs: safe, love, rain. The team called it the memory loop. They thought it was pattern, repetition. Nathan knew better. It was a story retold every day, the storm, the rescue, the promise. As weeks passed, her signs grew more complex. She began combining gestures no one had ever seen before. The interpreter frowned, unable to categorize them. Nathan saw something else, poetry written through movement. One night, reviewing footage, he caught a sign they'd missed. Help. He confronted the team. She's trying to tell us something. They doubted him until the slowed recording revealed the truth. The sign was there. Help. Signed 3 times with intent. Kira wasn't just remembering. She was reaching across time for meaning. And when Nathan asked her softly, "What do you remember?" she signed back, "Storm. Man. Safe." His chest tightened. 18 years had passed, and yet she spoke as if it were yesterday. What the world saw as animal behavior, he now saw as memory. That night, the footage became legend. For the first time, humans witnessed something science couldn't define, a gorilla not mimicking but remembering. And through her trembling hands, Kira was writing a story that would soon end where it began, in the rain. Something shifted in the sanctuary. Kira's interactions turned from play to purpose. She waited for Nathan every morning, her hands trembling as if words were building inside her. Each day she began with the same 3 signs: safe, love, rain. But soon she added more. The gestures were rhythmic, deliberate, layered with emotion. It was no longer vocabulary. It was storytelling. One morning, she refused to eat. She sat facing the window, signing a long sequence no one could understand. The interpreter watched in awe. "It's structured," she said. "She's forming patterns, like language evolving." At the end, Kira touched her chest, looked at the sky, and stopped. It was as if she had spoken to someone we couldn't see. Nathan couldn't rest. He studied the footage for hours, tracing every motion until one new sign appeared. Remember. She wasn't describing an object. She was recalling a moment. The day of the storm. The night she was saved. It was becoming clear. Kira wasn't talking about herself. She was talking about him. The next day, Nathan sat by the glass and whispered, "Do you remember me?" She tilted her head, eyes soft. Then slowly, painfully, she signed 4 words. You. Safe. Promise. Love. Tears blurred his vision. It was their language, their bond reborn. But underneath it, there was something else. Urgency. Her signs grew longer, her eyes more distant, her breathing heavy. The team suspected exhaustion. Nathan saw something deeper. Kira wasn't just remembering. She was preparing to say goodbye. The rain returned, the same rain that had joined their fates years before. Kira was weaker now, her breath shallow, her eyes tired. Yet every morning, she waited for him. When Nathan didn't come, she refused food. The scientists tried to limit sessions, but he begged, "You can't stop this now, she's trying to finish something." He documented every second, every blink, every pause. She looked at him, searching his face, and began again. Love. Safe. Storm. Then came a new sign. Pain. The interpreter hesitated. "Not physical pain," she said softly. "Heart pain." Kira touched her chest, then the air between them. Heart. Pain. Nathan couldn't speak. That night, alone in the dark, he sang the same lullaby. Through the glass, she stirred and signed back, "Love. Baby. Man. Rain." And finally, "Good." He pressed his hand to the glass. "You're good, Kira. You're so good." She watched him, silent, and something unspoken passed between them. Something only love understands. The next day they gave her one final session. Nathan entered, trembling. Kira lifted her hand. Her signs were slow, deliberate, final. You. Safe. Love. Remember. Then she paused and drew a circle in the air. The interpreter's voice broke. Forever. Nathan knelt, whispering, "I'll remember. I promise." The rain outside sounded like applause from heaven, and as she lowered her hand, her eyes met his one last time. In that silence, Something eternal was spoken. The footage of her final signs spread around the world. Millions watched the gorilla who had spoken with her hands say her last words through them. Some cried, some doubted, but everyone felt it. That strange ache in the chest when you realize love might not belong only to us. Scientists debated the meaning of her gestures. Was it memory, emotion, faith? But Nathan knew better. He stayed in the sanctuary, reading letters from people around the world. "If she can love," one child wrote, "then maybe we should learn again." Piles of letters became proof that compassion can ripple farther than words. At her memorial, beneath the same redwoods where her story began, Nathan stood before hundreds. He didn't bring notes. "We taught her to speak," he said softly, "but she taught us to listen." The crowd fell silent. She reminded us that language isn't sound, it's connection. Years later, Nathan still visited her empty enclosure. He would press his hand to the glass and whisper, "Forever." Because in the end, Kira's story was never about teaching a gorilla to speak. It was about learning what it means to be human. Some stories don't end, they echo. Kira's hands may have fallen still, but the meaning behind them continues to move through us. Her message wasn't about science or words. It was about the love that transcends every border, between species, between hearts, between worlds. She proved that connection doesn't need a voice, it only needs a soul willing to listen. Maybe that's her greatest gift, reminding us to look closer, to feel deeper, to treat life in every form with gentleness. Because somewhere, in the way a gorilla reaches for a friend, or a dog waits at the door, or a whale sings through the ocean, there's a reflection of our own humanity staring back. Every creature we meet is a living reminder that kindness is not instinct, it's choice. So if this story touched you, if you felt that invisible thread between hearts, carry it with you. Let it remind you to listen, to care, to love. And if you want to hear more stories like this, true moments that prove compassion is still alive, subscribe and stay with us, because here every story reminds us that love in all its forms is the most universal language of all.